Welcome to Beyond Birth Trauma, From Burden to Brilliance, where we uncover the powerful truth about your beginnings and how they've shaped your entire life. I'm Shannon O'Flaherty, and in this show, we are not just exploring your birth, we are dismantling the chains of generational trauma. We're diving into the core of who you are, peeling back layers of inherited beliefs and behaviors that have held you back for far too long. This isn't just about understanding your past. It is about reclaiming your future. Get ready to break free. This is Beyond Birth Trauma, From Burden to Brilliance, and your transformation starts now. Hi, I'm Shannon O'Flaherty, and welcome to Beyond Birth Trauma, From Burden to Brilliance. I'm so excited to have my father here with me today. I was very, very blessed in choosing a wonderful father who has always shown up and met me where I'm at. Not all of our interactions have been easy throughout life, but he has always received me and engaged in whatever important subject we've needed to discuss, both ways. So when he's needed my ear, I've been there too. We as kids think we know so much. However, our parents have had a lot more life experience and without all the tools and information that we've had growing up. So even if you don't have a relationship with your parents or a great relationship, there's never a better time to start healing it than right now. And that starts with a conversation. And if your parents have already passed, still speak to them in spirit, because when we heal ourselves, we are healing our lineage. Jim Flaherty, my father, I put the O back on my name when I was 24, going to be a famous actress, was an international advertising writer, creative director, and he's published 2 novels and 2 nonfiction books. He was also the creator and innkeeper of a 5-star country inn conference center. He's a frequent motivational speaker about aging cheerfully, the pain and pleasure of writing, the joy and oh my God of parenting, living abroad, and embracing an ancient quip of Noel Coward. He likes to say, work is more fun than fun. That should tell you a lot right there about this dynamic. A strong believer that you're only as old as you think. Jim thinks 90 going on 60 is terrific, and he is a father, a grandfather, and a great-grandfather. His home, where we are now, is a beautiful 1940s art-filled dairy barn in the foothills of the Berkshires. And his website, and if you want to find him and write to him, you are welcome to, is jamesbflaherty.com. And we'll say that again throughout the program. And if you want to find me and work with me, you can find me on shannonbtb.com or shannonoflaherty.com. Welcome, Dad, and happy birthday! It was your 90th birthday yesterday. How does it feel to be 90?
No, you're right. It's today. It's the 22nd of September.
That was yesterday.
Yesterday was the party. Oh, okay.
That was Sunday. See,
Okay.
90.
Right. All right. Yes, I forget where we are. All right.
So how do you feel being 90?
I really have no sense of age at all. I think mentally I'm 60. I absolutely embrace the reality that I am no longer a young man, but I'm also not an old man. I'm living, I am participating every day. I wake up, I greet every day with a smile. I do not wake up depressed. I wake up thinking, hot damn, I've got another day at it.
And like your thinking obviously sets you up for absolutely everything, not just having a happy, joyful life and aging cheerfully, but it sets you up for your health and your emotional stability and everything else you've got going in life. If your thoughts are in aligned, everything else will fall into place too. So Dad, so Jim, I know it's strange for me to call you Jim.
It is, but that's all right.
Yeah, okay. So for today, I can call you Jim and Dad. Let's talk about your earlier memories of life. What were your parents like, and how did they shape you?
Well, I think I was very fortunate. They got married in 1928, the beginning of the Great Depression in the United
Wow.
States. So mother said every nickel counted. They both had two or three jobs, you know, and dad worked his way up. He was a young attorney, and by the time I was a little boy, when I was still like 8 or 9 years old, my father was the district attorney of the city of Miami. So
Wow.
that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Dad's picture was in the newspaper all the time. And back then, if a family had enough money to live, women did not work. Women didn't have careers, they didn't have jobs, even though my mother was a nurse.
Hmm.
And in my early year when I was a baby, she said she had about three jobs. She would work, but doctors couldn't even afford a full-time nurse, so she worked for three different doctors.
Hmm. Hmm.
But life life was good. Life was good. I remember a very happy, wonderful, no trauma life at all until the one big trauma in our life, and we'll get into that later. I understand.
Well, I seem to recall, and I don't know if this was just for entertainment, because my grandmother, your mother, was very entertaining.
Yes,
And I
she
seem to
was.
remember her saying that she had to take rat hormones to get pregnant with you. Is that true?
Yeah, yes, she used to remind me of that now and then. I said, "Yeah, big deal."
Oh, that explains a whole lot, Dad, right there.
Right there, absolutely. And by the way, I was really good friends, terrific friends with your grandmother right up to the day she died. She was
Yeah.
85 and she was a terrific dame. And all of my
Yeah.
friends adored her. They all used to offer me money if I would trade mothers with them.
Yes, I mean Granny, she was definitely my favorite grandmother, and I inherited a lot of her hats and a lot of her dresses from the 1920s. Just
Right.
absolutely wonderful. Yes, we love her.
Yeah.
So there was a childhood incident that happened that I've only just learned about on this trip. I've heard many stories from you. It's cool to get some new ones. But tell us about the time that you were on the boat with your dad.
Okay. My father was a great father. He used to take me fishing and oh, we did all kinds of stuff back then when I was a kid. I was about 9 years old this particular day, and we had been way out in we lived in South Florida. We lived in Coral Gables, Florida, and we lived right there on the Atlantic. And we'd been way out in Biscayne Bay, which is a huge body of water, and an unreported hurricane blew up, which happened. Remember, there was no television back then, it was only radio, and it had not been reported. And we were in the boat. We had a captain to the boat. It was a small, like a 36-foot cabin cruiser. And the boat turned over with hurricane waves all around. And I remember it not being frightened because my father, who was king of the world, he was the DA and a strong guy, said, Jimmy, just one hand, keep one hand tight with my life preserver. He was also holding onto it with one of his hands, and keep one hand on the boat. And Clive, our captain, I love it, Clive, I love the name, swam. He said he'll go for help. He had to swim a half a mile through hurricane waves, and I remember not being worried at all, thinking we were bouncing around in the waves, thinking it's okay because Clive has gone for help. And sure enough, the Coast Guard came out and got us and took us back. And I
You
thought,
know,
when I got older, I thought, that's really good. If you stay calm and with young children, I I remember it wasn't a fearful thing at all. You know?
it's really interesting because when I heard that story, I thought, wow, I mean, that's a traumatic experience for anybody to be on a
Yeah.
boat that capsizes in a hurricane. But there was your dad being cool about it. And it reminded me of the time I was probably about 9 also. And we were living in Argentina and we
Mhm.
had that small cabin cruiser and you were taking us across the Rio del Plata. Do you remember this?
Rio de la
There-
Plata, the widest river in the world.
And there was a massive storm, massive storm.
Right.
And I remember, I know the story from you that you were absolutely terrified, but you were whistling away, sitting up there. And I remember sitting out in the other seat next to you, just enjoying it because dad was having such a good time out there in the storm and the waves. And so I
Mm.
could kind of embrace all of that. So the whole fear of sailing thing came much later for me in my adult life when I was actually sailing with men who weren't calm about things. So it's really interesting that the way your parents reacted to things going on
Oh, of course.
impacts on the children equally. And I've spoken about this a lot when your parents are going, it's okay, darling. Everything's fine. And you know that it's not fine. The kid is like, wait a second, I know this isn't right. But when your parent is really just kind of dealing with stuff and making the most of it because they're also in survival mode. If you're in a situation like that, your dad was in survival mode. And the most important thing when you're in survival mode, obviously, is to make sure that your kid is going to be okay too. Really
Absolutely.
interesting.
Absolutely.
Were there unspoken rules or values in your family growing up?
Let,
Like hidden
let me
expectations?
talk a moment, Shannon, about, remember, I was born in 1935. So I was a very little boy in the last half of the 30s, but then the 40s were my growing up years from age 5 to 15, right? We were a generation of yes sir, no ma'am. Now I don't laugh about it because I don't even understand it when people say, "Oh, I'm having such a terrible time. My daughters are fighting with me and they're having screaming arguments and defying their parents." And I thought, we didn't do that in the 40s. You said, "Yes, ma'am." And if an argument with your father, well, you may as well just go and cut your own head off because you didn't do that. You really did not do that. And but again, can I jump ahead and talk about growing up in that area of how
Yeah,
different it was
yeah,
growing
yeah.
I now when I talk to kids, it's as if I grew up on a different planet. We bought the first TV on our block. I was 15 years old.
Okay,
I did
people.
not
Can
see
you
t
imagine not
I
ever
didn't
seeing
see
TV?
TV until I
Wow,
was 15. But
wow.
again, we didn't have cell phones. There was no social media perverting our heads and
Mm.
destroying us. I'm so grateful now that I was able to help raise you with your mother without social media influencing you. You would talk to us and it was eye to eye contact. And I was so grateful that you were of an age that you didn't have cell phones because
Yeah.
as your sister said, good things because I would have slapped them out of your hands because when I was talking to you, I wanted eye to eye contact. You know,
Yeah, no, and
it's
I'm
what we
also
did.
very happy to have grown up in a life without all of that. I mean, I didn't have my first cell phone until I was 38 years old. Oh, cell phone. That's weird. I don't call it a
Right.
cell phone. I call it a mobile, but I'm in America now. I don't know what language I speak. Anyway, yes, it is really different because also a lot of kids in this day and age, regardless of the nurturing and genetics that they've inherited from their parents, social media, you can be bullied online. Like it's not bad enough just to be bullied at school anyway by the mean old bullies that there are.
Right.
But to
Right.
be bullied on social media, it goes much deeper. It really cuts emotionally, and your parents might not have any idea about that. And if your kid is in school and they're coming home depressed and they're starting to isolate, it's a really good time to go in and really ask some important questions there, like, is everything okay? Or is everything cool on social media with you? Because how would you know? How would you know
Mm.
if parents are
It
blocked from their
it's
children's
scary.
stuff?
It's scary. I mean,
It sure
children
is.
now are on tranquilizers and going to shrinks. I'll tell you, life was simpler. I'm not sure that yes, technology has certainly improved our lives. It's helped in the medical profession and it's helped in a lot of businesses. But I think in terms of living and having a relationship with your children,
Mhm.
it was maybe life was better, the simpler life, because we had each other. At nighttime, we didn't sit around the television, dad smoking and watching a football game. We talked to one another, and I grew up with a book in my hand because mom and dad would go to bed to read at night, and I followed their guidance. I still my favorite hour of the day is when I go to bed at night and I have 1 hour reading before I turn out the light.
I
I
remember
can't wait
you and
for it.
mom
Yeah,
had a
I
stack of books next to your beds all the
oh,
time.
absolutely,
Yeah, it always
absolutely.
upsets me if I'm out and about in town and people in shops and I see like a young child, like maybe 3-year-old already with an iPad playing some game and maybe it helps them comprehend things. I don't know. But what concerns me is where is that child's sense of holding and being received by their parents going to land? Because to
Mm,
me, that falls into I can't be bothered with you. Just be distracted over there while I go do my thing over here.
right, right, right.
Maybe not, maybe not. Maybe there's enough holding, but I think that it offers too many opportunities for parents to not deal with their children one to one and pick them up and hold them and figure out what actually
Uh,
needs to be
The,
done.
the statistics are horrible about how many hours each young person is spending on their phones every day, and which makes me nuts. It's just another statistic is how many people over the age of 65 spend 40 to 50 hours a week on television. And I'm
Wow.
thinking, you
I
gotta
mean,
leave,
unless you're
folks.
tuning in and watching this show, of course.
Yeah, but
Gonna
not
be
50 hours of it.
good.
Even you, I wouldn't listen to for 50 hours a
Thanks.
week.
That was so lovely. So yeah, so my parents used humor a lot sometimes, and I come from a kind of funny, different family than most families, and humor was used a lot. And mostly it was received really well, but sometimes using humor isn't dealing with what's actually going on. So these were things that even with a wonderful father and a fabulous mother, she's in spirit, that there was a lot of things that I had to overcome because we grow up with our child perspective. And that child, that 2, 3, 4-year-old, does not have the bigger picture of what's actually going on with your parents. And
Right.
so you need to make meaning out of this somehow when you're a child, and you need to trust your parents in that process. So we're in this continual process of having to please the parents. It's our survival mode when we're little kids. So I remember you coming home from work every day early, and you'd have like earlier, not late at night after we were in bed, early
Right.
enough to see you, and you'd
On
have half an
on
hour with
purpose.
Kelly
Yeah.
and a half an hour with me, one to one, before you even had time with mom, as I recall. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
making
because
it
you
up.
were going to go to bed.
Right.
Yeah. I did
Yeah.
not want to be an invisible father. I was commuting by train, remember? And
Yeah.
that's why I went to work very early, which is good. I got to work an hour to an hour and a half early my entire life, but it allowed me to leave at a decent hour. So I got home when you were babies. I could help bathe the babies and rock you at night. We had a rocking chair. We would rock and sing songs. I don't know whether you remember that, but
Remember the songs.
we
Yeah.
used to do that. And I loved it. That I felt I was then part of your babyhood rather than an absentee father who earned a living so that we could pay the mortgage and put food on the table.
I used to say, I think that Daddy um, works on I called it a typewriter.
Yeah, a
Look
typewriter
at a
on the
typewriter.
on the
Daddy works
train.
on a typewriter on the train because we drop him off at the train sometimes. He'd come home on the train. He had his typewriter with him. So that's what he did. He worked a typewriter on the train.
That's right. I was a commercial writer, folks, in case you
Yeah.
didn't get
In
that connection.
case you think he's working on a train, he did not
Mm,
work on the train. He wrote advertisements, many of which y'all might have seen.
mm,
So, um, that time, that for those formative years in
okay.
childhood is when we are bonding with our parents. And those
Mhm.
first couple of years, really, unless your father is the prime caretaker, it's really just about the mother. That's the main connection. The
Right.
father, like, great, he's fun. But later, so that father figure, especially if you're a daughter, that's going to be your first love. You're the man in your life who you're going to model all the other men after. I know you might not want to own that, but this is how it
Mm,
works.
mm,
If you're a man and with your father, you're going to look up to that father as the man that you're going to model after. And if you had horrible parents and you think, no way, no way, I'm not going to be like them, well, that's also a choice that you make when you're a kid. You could
yeah.
either not be like them and choose a different reality, or you're going to follow in their footsteps somehow, bringing those same repeating patterns out that you might be in denial about because you don't want to see it in yourself. Because we are perfect mirrors of our parents, we've modeled everything from them.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, what role did culture, religion, or community play in
Okay,
your
I'm going
upbringing?
to go back and relate because you're talking about my young years, my growing
Yeah.
up years, right?
Hmm.
In the 50s, in the 40s and 50s, in Coral Gables, Florida, where I lived, you knew on Sunday morning, you knew where every family was. They were in their church. We all went to church. Now,
Hmm.
even though we were Catholics, and my father was a very important Catholic lawyer, I didn't go to Catholic school. I went to public school because my father thought the public schools were better. But every Sunday, boy, were we in church, regardless. And I grew up that way. That was part of my life. In later years, like many people, I lost it. And now I'm an elder, that's a director of a Presbyterian congregation. And I have a rabbi friend from a Jewish temple who calls me a collapsed Catholic, which I find very funny actually. And but I'm a regular member of a Presbyterian church and sing in the choir and help direct the church.
I really don't think God is going to have any problem with a collapsed Catholic going to a Presbyterian church,
No,
or
and see,
any person out there if you're not into dogma or churches. I love churches. I love
right,
religious artwork, but I'm not into the whole dogmatic thing.
right.
I'm a highly spiritual person. I'm in direct contact with God every single day. I pray. I'm probably more religious than most people, even though to me it's spirituality and connection to earth and nature. So however you're going to find your your higher source to put some faith in, it really, really helps, because sometimes in life you can't control anything. And for me, any of you following me, you all know that's my big default mode, feeling trapped and out of control. And sometimes praying and connecting to that source is the only thing you can do. And when I do pray and connect to that source, I palpably feel a calming happening, because maybe I'm out of control in whatever situation. Dad and I were just on this big ship with huge waves, and I was not okay with that. And I knew we were safe, but I was just in the trigger the whole time. But when I pray and connect to that higher source, I trust my faith. So that gives me a feeling of calm. So, however it works for you, you don't have to be religious. You don't have to go to church. You don't have to call it God if you don't want to, but find a higher.
A higher power is very important. To, so you understand that you are not the most important thing in the world. You can't always, you must feel gratitude for yourself and forgive yourself for your many faults, but there has to be something more important than you alone. And can I
Mhm.
give your listeners a very important, a very interesting statistic that I'm sure they don't know, that
Yeah,
if you go to your church, temple, mosque 4 times a month, right? Not that doesn't take a lot of hours out of your life. You will live 4 to 8 years longer. How's that?
right.
That's a statistic. Okay. And I'll give another, since we've been talking about fathers and daughters. Uh, Fathers with daughters live longer.
Oh,
That's a statistic too. I guess sons grow up and they say, the old man was always this, but daughters don't want to dismiss their father like that. So,
mhm. That's interesting. I'm happy to hear that because my
yes,
young son is having a little girl in
yeah, that's
January.
right.
So that's very good.
Oh,
Got to
well,
tell,
no,
got to tell the world.
mothers with sons do very well, but fathers with daughters also
The
survive better.
relationship dynamics are all very, very interesting because I raised two sons, as most of you know by now, and the things that I could do with my kids, Bobby Baby was always like, how do you manage to do that with the boys? I'm like, well, they're not in competition with me, sweetheart. You're the man. They're competing with you. They're not going to compete with
Right,
their mother.
right.
Sometimes it can be different with daughters and mothers because some competition
Oh,
can
yes.
come in there too. So that's
Oh,
very
yes.
interesting.
Hmm.
But I tell you, when my mother died, I knew her better than anyone. I knew her, I knew everything about her because when I was growing up, I wanted to know, Mom, what was it like for you when you were 15? What did you do? And I wanted to know all about her life. And we became very good friends, and I was her confidant. So by the end, I knew a lot of things about my mother that nobody had ever bothered asking. So
Yes.
if your parents are still alive, get to them now. It's so much easier to find
Hmm.
out about your ancestral lineage when you have the stories from your parents' mouths. And if your
Hmm.
parents have passed already, go talk to your relatives, find out stories about your parents, because sometimes just knowing a little something about them, like that statement in introducing my father, work is more fun than fun, right? So
Hmm.
dad's a workaholic. He always has been. It's just something I've grown up with. My sister definitely got his work ethic. I did too, in a different way than my sister. And the pressure both of us give on ourselves from like stopping, if we stop, like we can't stop. So I learned last year the hard way with shingles and dark night of the soul that stopping is really important sometimes, that you can't just keep working, working, working. But because of dad's work ethic and growing up with be the best you can do and make everything happen, that was, we modeled that. We modeled that behavior from him. And depending on what kind of kid you were and how you perceived things, you modeled the good aspects of things, and maybe you modeled some of the lesser good aspects of things too. So these are all things that you can fix. If you understand your parents and how they were raised and what did they grow up thinking? What was their imprint? It's so much easier to understand your own. And then you can go back and reframe all of that kind of confusing childhood stuff like, oh, well, they were just doing the best they could with the knowledge that they had at the
Right.
time.
That's right.
So, Dad, when you think of home as a child, home,
Hmm.
what images or feelings come up for you?
Well, my early years, Shannon, were also perfectly happy. That all I remember are glimpses of happy. I certainly didn't grow up in a home where I had parents arguing in front of me, nor did you, because that's something I feel so sorry for children that have had to grow up in that kind of environment. It was very loving, But suddenly, my father, my hero father, whom everybody adored, especially my mother, absolutely adored her husband, went in the hospital one Sunday and died the next Sunday, and he was 47 years old and was just about to become a judge. And mother said, we would have been richer than Croesus. she, Dad was earning $25,000 a year as district attorney of the city of Miami. That was before taxes, 25,000 a year, but that was in 1950, and he died in 1950. And
Wow.
so from that moment on, it was just mother and myself, and she said she was a mess for about 6 months, but she kept that from me until she got her act back together. And then we really had no money. And she
You
went
were
back. I was
14?
I was 14 when he died. I turned 15 that year, that later on that year. And in fact, later on that year, we drove up three months after he died. We drove up north. Uh, well, the family wanted to see us, and we had a stick shift Buick. My father taught me to drive when I was 13, and I had a junior license. In Florida, you could drive from 14 on if you had a senior with you. And I did practically all the driving because as we went through hill country, mother had never driven in hills because Florida's dead, like a football field flat. And she would stop at a stoplight and roll backwards because she couldn't downshift fast enough. So I did all the driving, and we drove up to West Virginia and then up to New York City, and then we drove down to Atlanta, and we flew to California to see all the Flahertys lived in California, and then we came back to Atlanta and drove home to Florida. But that was life was very different after Dad died. Mother went to work back to work as a nurse for $50 a week before taxes. That was what she earned, and I had jobs through high school. I worked through high school and I worked through college and I had scholarships. I want to tell you something, Shannon. I never, ever in my life, I don't ever remember feeling poor or,
No.
uh, gosh, poor us, poor. Hell no. I thought it was terrific. And when I went to work, my first job in New York, I earned $200 a month after taxes. That's all I took home, and I had no allowance from home. I was living in New York City on $200 a month. Was I living well? No. I would cook a meatloaf and eat that all week long. I mean, hell, eh,
It's
guess what? You get through, you do it. You,
it's really important point that you made there, Dad, about never having felt poor, even though you were working your butt off all of those
no.
years, and your mother was too. And that is, it's something that I realized fairly recently, like in the last 10 years or so, that um, because in teaching abundance and lack mentality and all of that, that I come from a family, thankfully, that does not have a lack mentality. My mother had some lack issues around money, but dad, what he just said about never having felt poor, there was no poor me, poor us, the suffering, and he had some real grief going on as a kid, losing a parent. It's a big deal, and it does change you. But then you became the man of the house at 14 years old
Yeah.
and had to step into those responsible shoes very early. So you hear him speaking about, I had three jobs, I was working this, I was doing this, I was taking care of everyone. And look what you do now. You write books about
It's great. Yeah, you were
aging.
wrong, by the way. I've written 5 books, Shannon, 2 novels and 3 nonfiction.
Yeah, I'm pay attention to you when you tell me these things, Dad. I'm sure he's written a lot of books. He's still writing books.
And
He's
I've written
writing all the
a TV series and a screenplay that I'm trying to sell.
I mean, dad is always writing. That's something I'm very grateful, because in high school, when we still had electric typewriters back in the day, he said, I'm going to pull a father now on both of you girls, and I absolutely insist that you take typing and learn how to type. And we're like, oh, dad. And my sister and I type with all our fingers and quickly. We're not any of these two finger typer things. So I'm really grateful
That
for.
was, I'm a quickie story from your grandfather, from my father. When I was 13 or 14 and entering Coral Gables High School, they offered as an alternate course woodworking or typing or something like that. And I told my father, and he said, "Good, Jimmy, take typing." And I said, "Oh, Daddy, only girls take typing so they can become secretaries." And this is 1949. My father, how smart he was. He said, "Jimmy, the world will be run by keyboards." He said that in 1949. I said, "Yes, sir." And I became a 100 word a minute typist. But maybe that's what led me to becoming a writer later on. But I learned typing when I was 14 years old,
Mhm.
touch typing.
So in all of the money and work and emotions and having all of the jobs and your childhood and all of the things that you've carried through life with you, how do you feel that you've carried those patterns into your family with Kelly, my sister, and me, either consciously or unconsciously?
Well, fortunately, I didn't want you all to have the same economic hardships. You did not have to work your way through college. I
Nope.
was happy. I was happy to pay the bills to help you get on and to help you get started in your young marriages and all that good stuff, which is fine. And now it's very interesting, when your children are in their 60s. you know, I've told both of you, don't tell daddy when you turn 70. I don't want to know about it. But I I I just wanted you to have a happy and full life and to enjoy, and you have your children for such a short time, but you do have a big strong influence on them, and then it depends on what kind of relationship you're going to have the rest of your life with your children. I feel so sorry for I have many friends who do not have relationships with their children, and I do have a very honest relationship with you and your sister. We
Yeah.
talk about everything and anything. There are no subjects that are off the table because we can't. We must talk about it. And
Mm,
hopefully, I'm not going to become a pain in the neck that you're going to have to worry about. And I probably won't because I've tried to make the right decisions about myself. Most people don't do that. Let me switch off for 1 second, Shannon, and tell
that's okay.
people I want all
You
of
do you.
you in your 40s and 50s, and you have older parents right now to make a decision. What's going to happen 10 years from now to mom and dad? Are they going to be living alone? Can they afford it? Can they afford to hire somebody now to come live with them? I hired somebody 25 years ago when I needed no one, and she's still with me. I have a nanny who lives in a tiny little Mexican lady who runs my life and my house and everything. She's like a Navy SEAL commander, but I have a perfectly run home and I
Yes.
don't have to worry about anything. And I want all of you to think ahead. Don't wait till they're 82 and have a problem. Solve it now. Solve it right now.
We
Okay?
love that Dad has a nanny, and my sister and I here. Dad, just cover your ears for one moment. We think she's a saint and should have angel wings for taking care of him all the time.
Absolutely. And I'm St. Jim.
He did. We bought him a crown for his birthday party so
Yes,
that he could
yes, they
be
did. They
King
made me
James
wear a
on the
crown.
day.
I said that's because I'm a royal pain in the, well, never
Mm,
mind.
mm, mm. So, Dad, were there moments ever growing up when you chose to break away from your family traditions?
Uh, when I was a young man, I no, not really. With my mother's and my stepfather, I had a lovely stepfather. Mother remarried a few years after my father died, and I left home to go away to University of Florida and then to Michigan State University, a state I never where I knew not one person, and I saw snow for the first time in my life when I was 20 years old,
Oh,
and I
man.
went up there to get my degree in communications and then I went to New York, and it was fine. They raised me to be an independent thinker, and they knew that I wasn't going to stay home in Coral Gables. I
Hmm.
didn't want to do that. Just as I raised you and Kelly, I said, hell, I moved you to Argentina when you were 9 and 11, and I said, I want you to go away to college. I don't want you to be home every weekend. I want you to go out and have a life, and I
Hmm.
don't care where you live. I want you to be good at it, but go and live your life. You
Did
know,
you want to be a district attorney like your dad?
when I was a little boy, I said to my father, "I'm going to grow up and be a lawyer just like you." And he said, "Jimmy," I was Jimmy back then. He was Jim. He said, you don't have to be a lawyer. I don't care what you are, but just be very good at it." And I turned out to be a very, very good copywriter and then a creative director. And then I was a very good innkeeper. I ran a country inn. And now I'm not a bad writer of books and public speaker. I
I
have
think
fun.
my dad and you, Jim, you are an exceptional person. You've always been very interesting and very funny, different than your average person, very twisted sort of sense of humor, which we've all grown up with. But yeah, the whole be perfect thing. So you can see where just hearing him speak, where that my sister got that, I got that in different ways. My sister and I are as different as two people could be. We even have an agreement to disagree so that we can be very good friends because we think about things differently and process things differently. But when
Hmm.
you're all in the same family, you've got to find a way forward so that you can all communicate because the family dynamics obviously are always shifting and changing in over the years. But it's really important to communicate. So that's
I
something,
love that you two love each other. Very
yes.
important in families. I want all families to come together because it's crucial.
It is the thing that makes me the most joyous in my whole life is that my two sons love each other. And I
Right,
hope that continues forever after.
right.
So what was the hardest lesson life taught you, and how did it affect your family? I mean,
Well, I think
dad died.
probably my father dying young, that completely changed our life, completely. But we coped with it. I mean, there's a funny, it's a colloquial expression, but I think it's very meaningful. You you play the hands you play the hand you're dealt.
Hmm.
You know, if life is a poker game, you know that now and then you're going to have a lousy hand and you're going to lose. But if you really work at it, you keep playing, then you'll have a good hand. I
Hmm.
mean, but whatever happens, somebody dies, somebody moves, somebody divorces. You ha, you're going to have to live with it. You can't let it destroy you. You say, that's the way things are now. So how can I make today work? Today has got to work for me. I'll tell another really quickie story from your grandmother. She said, every morning of your life, you're going to have to face your biggest critic, the hardest person in your life. And it's that person in your bathroom mirror. And you can either look at them every morning and go, good God, another day, or smile bravely and cheerfully and say, good God, another day, and go after it. And I know it sounds maybe a little hokey, a little corny. I do that every day. I say,
You know,
"Good God, another day," and I'm gonna do it. I'm going to win. I'm
I
going to
think
be on
that
top of it.
you have certainly passed down to me your glass half full kind of
Yeah,
attitude. And I definitely am that way too. I always tell people to find the gift in every situation, even if it's just a grain of sand of, okay, well, it could have been worse. Yeah, because things could always be worse. And even if the worst case scenario is happening, find one thing about it that you can at least accept or appreciate because that'll be your first step towards climbing back up to find hope so that you can then function and keep moving forward in life. Now, when tragedy happens, there's a process because there's a grieving process and all of that, and it can
Mm-hmm.
take a long time. But if you're constantly thinking about what you have to offer and how you can continue to move forward, then you're stepping out in the world with a positivity instead of poor me, the whole world is revolving around me, because we all tend to get in that spot sometimes in life. Um, Tell the story. I just love this story. When your mother
Okay.
went away and
When, when my
you were
mother
just,
went, what?
I don't know, she went away and you did
Oh,
something to her.
oh yes. Oh yeah. When I was 15 or 16 years old, mother took her first vacation after dad died. She was going away for 3 weeks. I said, fine, I will be fine. I'm going to stay with my friend Gordon. His family said I could always stay with them. While she was gone, I took a sledgehammer, and we had a house with a small living room and a small dining room, and it with a wall with an archway in it. The house had been built Spanish style. I took a sledgehammer and knocked out that wall and took the rugs out and sent them out and had them bleached out and dyed. They were cotton shag rugs. We remember we lived in Florida. Had an electrician come in and did whatever electrical work was necessary, completely repainted the whole room, changed everything. Mother's friends were horrified, except one friend who had been an interior designer in New Jersey said, Jimmy knows what he's doing and he's got a good plan. So I completely changed it. I knew mother in her mind wanted to do that. She had mentioned it before. And she came home and almost fell over, walked in, and she had a new house. She'd been gone for 3 weeks, and I got it all done. And she
Could
said,
you
fine,
imagine
and
if
left
your
it.
15-year-old while you were away on holiday redid your like knocked out walls? I mean, it was definitely
Right,
a
and no drugs, remember. We didn't do drugs back then.
So, what were some of the most important lessons you learned from your parents from either what they told you or what you
Yeah,
modeled from them?
I'm glad you mentioned it, Shannon, because mother raised me with the golden rule, which has existed way, many hundreds, thousands of years before Christ. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And it is in the Bible, almost in those words now, and every religion has used it. When the kids were born, I thought, lay that on a 4 or 5 year old, do unto others as they would do unto you, and they would say, huh? So I rewrote it to be easier for them. You get what you give. So if you give a sympathetic ear, I mean, you really listen to people. If you give a meaningful smile, a loving hug, if you give a generous heart, you get it back. If
Yes.
all you do is bitch and moan and complain and demand and order, that comes back to bites you, you know where, somewhere below your belt buckle behind you.
Hmm.
And so it's easy. Give good, get good. And
Hmm.
I know the girls have raised their sons saying the same things to them. If you give enough good, I well, anyway, I won't preach on about it, but I still believe it, and I believe in it all the time. And in the common courtesies of opening doors for people and carrying packages for older people, it's doing something nice for somebody when you expect nothing in return.
Yeah.
That'll make you feel like a better person. It's
Yeah.
an
Being on the
important
path
way
of
to be.
service.
Yeah, it really
Being
is.
on the
It's
path of
an
service.
important way to be. Do that at least for one person every day and for more if possible.
What do you hope future generations learn from your life?
Well, for me, I hope that would-be elders and elders learn that the band won't stop playing till they stop dancing. You know, that life goes on if you want it to. I mean, if
Mhm.
you think old, you will get old. So don't think old. Think, what can I do today? I'm older, so maybe I'm wiser. Maybe I can. And if you're bored, if you're lonely, look, see what your public library is doing. I'll bet they've got programs and you can do things, or go to church and meet people. but meet, don't be lonely.
Yeah.
Loneliness is more dangerous than smoking. The doctors
Yeah.
are all now
I
saying.
think
So
wasn't that
do something.
wasn't that from the Modern Elder Academy also where they did a thing about relationships and
Uh,
how
it's
many,
very important. Yeah, I
yeah,
go to Modern Elder
community.
Academy. I love them. I go to their workshops, and they all know the more connections you have in life, the longer you live. There's a book even written called The Happy Life, and it talks about that, and it's very wonderful. And so Sunday we had 40 people here in the house, 40 people, all local friends, and they're of all ages and all kinds of everything from ministers to writers to God knows what, doctors, everything. And it was wonderful. And we laughed a lot and had a great time.
It was a good party.
Yeah.
So let's do some downloads because we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Um, as we model the good and bad and brilliant and ugly from our parents, whether you want to own that or not,
Oh
it's
yeah.
important that we know how to feel easy in speaking with them and in having the important conversations. Unknowingly, we may be holding the mantle for our parents, which is why it's not uncommon that when parents die, some people suddenly change careers to do what they've always wanted to do instead of doing what they thought their parents wanted them to do. So if you're happy to receive right now, put your feet flat on the floor, have a little drink of water if you need one. Hold your palms up, but relax them down on the table or your legs in front of you so you're not hovering. And just say yes out loud if you want to receive after each thing. Let me just connect. You can repeat after me out loud if you want. I know what it feels like to forgive my parents. And do that individually. I know what it feels like to forgive my mother. I know what it feels like to forgive my father.
My father.
Say
Yes.
yes if you want to receive that. I know what it feels like to appreciate my parents.
I know what it feels like to appreciate my parents, which I do.
I know what it feels like to live free from holding the mantle for my parents.
Free
I
and
know what
free.
it feels like to forgive myself.
That's very important, friends. Very important.
And I know what it feels like to be valued by my parents.
Hmm.
Now, in every cell of your body, in every level and plane of your existence. Thank you, God. It's done, it's done, it's done. And so it is. And the
Great.
reason why we like to forgive ourselves is because you might be beating up that little child self for perceiving things incorrectly or for hating your parents all through life because you had the wrong information or you just didn't understand something. Or maybe because they were really horrible and you really wanted to hate them. But when you're hating others, you're hating yourself. And so you need to forgive yourself for all of the negative thinking that you might have been carrying through your life.
Hmm.
So, Dad, if there's one message that you could get our viewing and listening audience to take away with them today from this wonderful conversation with you, what would you like them to go away with?
I really would like everyone to realize that life is a miracle, that things in terms of eternity, what do we live? We live maybe 6 minutes. So if you're 50 years old, maybe you only have 2 minutes left. So you, I think to realize that, hot damn, I have another chance today to see, hear, taste, touch, share, smell, embrace, love, share. That's an absolute gift. Every day of life is a gift. Enjoy it and live it. Don't waste it. Okay? Have a purpose in life, have a reason, and be happy about it. And learn to love other people. The second commandment is very important. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dad. It's been, as always, I mean, I love talking to you. We could talk for days and days, and we often do, but it's really wonderful to hear about your life and your successes. And I couldn't really imagine having a better parent to model from. Lucky me.
Thank you, darling.
So if you need to have a relationship with your parents, if they've died already, speak to them in spirit. They hear you. When you do your work, you heal your lineage.
Good.
Obviously, I've been doing all my work. Look how wonderful he is. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Jim Flaherty. If you want to find him, he's at what's your website? James.
JamesBFlaherty.com.
Thanks. Or you can find me at shannonbtb.com or shannonoflaherty.com. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you, Jim Flaherty.
Goodbye, friends.
Bye for now. You have been listening to Beyond Birth Trauma, From Burden to Brilliance with Shannon O'Flaherty on Transformation Talk Radio. On the second Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time, we connect the dots between your ancestors, your birth, and the patterns that keep you stuck, guiding you to a place of profound healing and unstoppable brilliance. By examining and healing your cellular imprint from birth of how you perceive and respond to the world and the challenges that are created in your day-to-day life, we can begin to heal and live more balanced and fulfilling lives. For more information, visit shannonbtb.com. That's shannonbtb.com.